Greetings and welcome to Let's Get Started as Japan in Victoria 3. This video aims to be half educational and half entertaining, a little bit of a let's play and a little bit of a tutorial. It's a chance for me in a casual and unscripted manner to illustrate my strategy for getting Japan going. So what type of strategy is this? Well, first, it's not a min-maxing approach. We won't be declaring war on Britain on day one. Neither is it really a role-playing approach. I won't be reading every pop-up in an animated voice. Instead, it's what I call a stability and growth approach, where we seek, mostly within the mechanics of the game, as intended by the developers, to maximize our growth, push some envelopes and walk some red lines, but to do so without causing chaos in our country. We won't be provoking any civil wars, because what kind of leader would possibly provoke a civil war in their country for their own personal gain? With the preliminaries out of the way, let's hit a few more preliminaries. First, I am using the two mechanics DLCs, Spheres of Influence and Charters of Commerce. I don't have any flavor packs though. I also have one mod, that being the mod that is the map you see before you. I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but I'll be sure to put it and a link to it in my description. Also, the colors may seem a bit muted to you. That is because I do keep night mode on. It's easy on my eyes, and it'll be easier on yours. You should thank me in the long run, perhaps. Now we are ready to maybe click a few buttons. You'll notice, however, that I have a game already loaded up, and that I didn't start from the Victoria 3 launch screen. That's because there are a couple conditions which it is nice to have in place in order to really make sure my strategy gets off to a good start. One of those conditions is incredibly common. In fact, it's almost the default. That is that the leader of the shogunate is an authoritarian. As you can see, there's a 60% chance of that being true, so, it's pretty likely. In the event you get a moderate, that's actually not bad either, but it's pretty darn unlikely, and I'm not even going to go through the steps that you would differ from this approach if that happens. The second condition, which I didn't even really realize until recently was a condition, because I didn't think it was variable enough, is that the petite bourgeoisie are not marginalized. Now, when we get to the point where we're actually using them to pass a law, I'll talk about why this is possibly not a strict condition. There is another approach, but I consider that approach the backup approach when things start to fail. Alright, now we're set with our conditions. We have a non-marginalized petite bourgeoisie and an authoritarian in charge. So let's get to clicking some buttons, other than just popping up screens. The first action we're going to want to take is to get rid of the leader of the Hymen. The Hymen leader is a pacifist, and pacifists are never happy because the world's a terrible place and they can't do anything about it. So we're going to exile him. We're also doing this because we want to spark the peasant movement. Go into retirement, my good fellow, you'll be much happier there. And your group is much happier without you, actually, because they got a royalist who loves the fact that we have royalty. The reason we're sparking the movement this way rather than raising taxes is because we can't raise taxes because it might make the shogunate unhappy. They can get some radicals and have a -1 or even a -2 debuff to their approval. We'll raise taxes later if we need to. That's a gun I like to keep in my belt until we absolutely need it. Now we can get to boosting and suppressing the appropriate groups. We're going to suppress the absolutists and boost the peasants. Don't even bother checking for agitators. Japan never has any at the beginning. And I probably say that and there's 1 in a million chance of actually, it happening. Let's pass our first law. The first law we're going to seek to pass is home affairs. We're doing this because it makes the shogunate happy, because they're an authoritarian. It'll also strengthen the petite bourgeoisie, and believe it or not, in the early game, they are actually an engine of change and progress. In the late game, not so much. Once this law is passed, the shogunate will be so happy that our next law, at least initially, will be stall-free. We're going to try to shoot for appointed bureaucrats, because it will soften the blow when we come off isolationism with the tax capacity buff that we will be losing when we lose isolationism. It won't have a huge chance of success, but many times it goes through. It used to be going through so often I almost thought it was a sure thing, but I guess I was just going through a lucky phase in life. After we pass that, we'll move on to closed borders, and I'll also discuss your other options if you want a different approach to the gameplay. Alright, on to our budget. We're not going to be raising taxes, as I said. We will do it later. We will, however, tack in a consumption tax on tea for a bit of extra cash. You could also tax tobacco if you want instead, but that hits the lower classes. Government wages, I'm going to tick down just a little bit. Not too much, we don't want to upset people too much, no reason to, and we don't desperately need the money, at least not right now. For the buildings, we're going to want to change a couple PMs really quick. First, we're going to want to switch our government admin to secular to try to boost up the intelligentsia a bit. Then, we're going to want to change the urban centers to be utilizing market squares, simply because it's more productive, so why not? It'll create some demand for glass, and glass is going to be something that we use a lot later in the game. More kind of mid-game, I would say, though, despite the wonderful glass company that Japan has. Alright, the other PMs, it's always good to check and see if you want to change something, but there really isn't anything. We'll get around to them later, improving our livestock and our fish and our logging and such. However, there is one logging you do want to change, and that is the logging in Chubo. You're going to want to boost it up to sawmills because you start the game actually with a few extra tools from your trade with China. And this has the perfect number where the amount you use and need balances out well. Our PMs are all done now, so we can move on to the market. But we don't actually care about it so much, nothing much we can do. What we do want to do is actually set up what parts of the market we want to watch. And for my approach, I especially want to keep an eye early game then on clippers and on paper. Paper you always want to keep an eye on anyways, because government is expensive. I'm going to tack in fish too, just because I like to use that to illustrate a point later. And then we want to watch our construction goods, of course. Paper, wood, tools, and we'll put iron in there as well once we get some iron up and running. There we go, all set there. I want to get rid of the army. I don't really need to see that there, and expand this so I can see how people are doing with their attitudes. With the army, this is totally unnecessary, and I could probably leave this out so that the video got shorter, but I do like to split it into 3 groups. Northern group with the soldiers from Kanto and Tohoku, and then a central group with the soldiers from Kansai and Chubu, and then we have almost 3 equal stacks, 30s, and we'll make them equal by getting rid of some extra troops here in some of our provinces. And 30 stacks are nice because an arms industry makes 30, and you can slowly upgrade your units as you deploy your arms industries. It's also nice to have these divided by province so that later on when you need enlistment decrees, you can do them by province and not have to spread them across every province in your entire country. Alright, so military is equally balanced in 30s. Power blocks doesn't matter, but diplomacy does matter. It's very simple for Japan though, because we're isolationist. We're going to start by improving relations, as usual, with the countries that care about us, and care in a way that we don't want them to care. But we're not going to declare any interests. This is purely anecdotal and personal preference. I personally think it just puts you on people's radar, draws attention to you, and I just kind of want to stay off the radar for a little while. Some people might like to open on day 1. I prefer to have at least 4 years, and ideally 8 years. Lately, it seems the 4-year opening is pretty common. Used to be the 8-year in 44 was very common, and it still is quite common, so we'll see what happens this run. That's why this strategy has several phases, so that we're prepared for anything. Alright, technology now. As with all societies that do not have it at the beginning, we want to start with stock exchange. It won't help completely because traditionalism is the largest malice we get to our MAPI, our market access price impact, but it'll help somewhat. We're going to also want to prepare for laws by getting romanticism and getting currency standards. We'll finish the text long before we're probably ready to pass the laws, but good to have them out of the way. By the time these finish, I'm going to usually want some more money, so I usually go with banking next. I tend to finish this entire tier up here first, and actually 3 texts in the bottom before I even move on to production, though I will draw special attention to mechanical tools as something very important for the approach I'm taking. I just like to cross my fingers and hope I get a lucky text spread. Alright. Companies we'll get to probably in the next episode, unfortunately, as much as I really am keen and eager to talk about it. We can now look at our map and go, what have I not done? Well, we haven't done our edicts. Unfortunately, we can only do 1 edict, and we'll do a road maintenance wherever we're building. I'll try to keep on top of moving it, but, doesn't have to be perfect. Not for a video, at least. We're doing this because we want this negative 25% enactment time, so we want to leave all of our other authority up here. Alright, now we can actually start building. We're going to start with our standard construction loop that you'll do in mini playthroughs for almost every country. As Japan, though, we can build quite a bit of it right away. So we're going to do 4 construction sectors in each of our iron-bearing provinces, except Hokkaido because there's no people up there yet. We're going to also do 1 more in Tohoku at the end because I like even numbers, and that will come out to 40. We're going to then want some trees to feed those construction industries, also in each province. Now I scatter these across the sectors, or the places, in a way like this, rather than doing all one province at once, so that they have an opportunity to employ up before moving on to the next building. If you put them all in one place, it's going to take longer for them to employ up. Probably doesn't make a huge difference, but, you know, in a game of snowballing, every little thing at the beginning can turn into 10 million GDP towards the end game. We want to make those trees a bit more efficient, so we'll want a tooling in Kanto, and we'll want those toolings to be more efficient, so we'll also put an iron there. And we'll do the same thing in Tohoku. We'll later try to tack one down in Shikoku, but in the interest of being adaptable, we wait right now and don't do it immediately. The last 2 things we're going to want to put on our list are some government admins. We're going to pop them all into Kansai, and we're going to put 8 down. And every time we need one, we can just alt it to the top of the construction queue. 8 tends to be how many you need, sometimes a bit less. If you're unlucky, sometimes a bit more. We're going to also put down 2 universities there in the interest of social change, and so they stare us in the face so we don't ignore building them forever. We want to get those up to get the event that gives us some free tech spread. Now we are ready to roll. This won't really take 9 years, don't worry. This is a good point, of course, to save your game. You can call this, you know, Shogunate setup. And if something goes terribly wrong, you can restart without having to do all these preliminary steps. And it's, of course, also a good chance to sit back again and go, is there anything I've forgotten? I don't think we have, so I'll just go, is there anything I've forgotten? Nope, I don't think so. Let's start rolling our clock a little bit. I do tend to leave this construction queue up quite often, and I do apologize if you find it irritating, but in my view, it's just useful to monitor it in the early game especially and keep on top of things. We can speed this up a little bit, of course. I always run it at 5. I really do wish there was a speed 4.5, but the Dutch attitude worsened. Oh, the Dutch actually care about our region. This is incredibly rare. Let's take a look at that. Russian interest, British interest? I don't see an interest. How do they care? I mean, I guess they have a treaty with us, but it's still very unusual. Well, let's improve relations with them then as well. And we can even improve relations with Qing. Doesn't hurt, and it can open up some opportunities. Pretty rare, but it can. British response, anger. Yes. The British, they're such an angry people. So, what we're looking for here as our laws pass is any opportunity to make the shogunate happier and the samurai happier. We're also looking for any opportunities to boost the strength of any of the other groups except the monks. The monks, generally, we really don't care what happens to them. Of course, the number 1 priority is just making sure the law passes. With 0 opposition, it usually flies through without much. We became obsessed with liquor? Why not tea? Well, that'll make more money. I find liquor isn't really a good money maker these days. Well, sake it is. Wasn't really meant to be the core of my playthrough, but it's fine. It would have been much more thematic if it was tea. Maybe we're already obsessed with tea, but I would have thought so. I haven't checked that, actually. Usually I like to keep on those obsessions. Alright, sorry, road maintenance. Japanese. Obsessed with liquor. It's always a shame. I like more obsessions that are just more unique than liquor. Alright, National Guard is up and running. So we've lost some bureaucracy because of that. But we can solve that problem by queuing 2 of our bureaucracies right to the top. Now we'll pause for just a second and move to our next law. So, our next law we're going to require to get the petite bourgeoisie into government. They should get a little bit stronger even now that they've got that boost from the National Guard. There is another option, of course, and I'll outline it now, and that is generally, and we can see if it works this run, to bring the intelligentsia into government, and then to lower your taxes to get your legitimacy a little bit higher. This is what I call the backup plan now. We want to start with the petite bourgeoisie because it requires less sacrifice. Alright, that's actually 64 even without the monks. Is there any reason we wouldn't want them in? Not kicking them out later? No, it doesn't matter. Now let's keep it a little bit higher just in case then. Alright, that is our new government, and we will pass hereditary bureaucrats. The chance is really low. It used to go through very smoothly for me, but as I think I already mentioned, it's it can fail and does quite often not work out quite the way you want. What we'll do is when we get about halfway through, if we realize that the situation is not going how we would want, we'll try to swap the intelligentsia into government because they are slightly stronger, and it will boost the success chances of this going through. So, appointed bureaucrats. And as you can see, 0 opposition to that at present. If you're very lucky, you'll get an event that makes the shogunate just even +1 happier, and then you get through pretty smoothly. Alright, now let's unpause again and move on. Point to bureaucrats. Success, debate is 86% chance. Alright. Still have our chance there of our 25% negative. Sometimes I feel it's good to go down one. Alright, first event is, yes, the one you always get. The we will spare no expense. This costs you a bit of extra bureaucracy for a little time, but that's a cost that goes away once the law is done passing. Let's take a look here. Just 10. I always like to double check and make sure I haven't not paid attention to something. Time success. I would have thought that this was higher success. It would just make sense from a balancing perspective, but no, it is not. Alright. There we go. Let's tack then up 2 more, but we're probably going to need 3. Slowing down our construction, but even though the hit to our finances from only negative 100 bureaucracy isn't bad, it's really best to stay right on top of it. You don't want to have to deal with it later. And we need as much money as we can to deal with any negative events that happen. It's me or them. You just got in government, fella, and you're already unhappy. What a ridiculous thing to say. That's a bit of a shame. It's going to make you not as strong, but we're definitely not making everybody unhappy just so you get a bit more popular. The peasant movement is wanting to debate a little bit, and yes, we always want to take the first event. That is a good one to get at this time. Always good to at least check your other events though, but I'm not going to read through them. I've done this often enough that I know what's happening. I'm going to take a little sip of my coffee. Whoops, pardon there, I hit the table, and hopefully it didn't sound too loud in the mic. Meritocracy. A new guard of intelligentsia bureaucrats are outshining the shogunate in every aspect of their work. Clearly appointed bureaucrats is the correct policy. That is a good event. That would lower shogunate strength, but only for 2 years and not by that much. So I'm actually going to go for the 20% chance. I want this as high as possible, as quickly as possible. Okay, now I will have the sip of my coffee. It's gotten slightly cold. Alright, we can move our construction sector here. Or did I already move it? Or did I forget to even put it down? Where is my construction sector? Ah, no, I already moved it. No? Yep, there it is. My apologies. Clicking wrong. Alright, that is good that we've moved on one phase before the shogunate has gotten to only +4 happiness. Because that's when we'll get our stall chances. Oh, wow, this is a pretty lucky one, which is good, because now you can see we have our stall chance, and we will get some setbacks here, I'm sure. In fact, when we get to the end, I'm going to stop for 1 second, and again explain my backup plan. Okay, let's go. All right, stop. Oh, I guess so the backup plan, again, just because I want you to have it in mind. If they get stall chance too high and you take a couple bad hits on your success chance, the backup plan is to go into your government, just swap the intelligentsia in. We're not going to actually click the confirm button, or hopefully not. And then to get your extra, get above the illegitimate, you're going to go to your budget and you're going to lower your taxes down here to get the extra 5 legitimacy. To make up for the loss, then I usually also will lower this and tack in 1 more tax, even if it slows this down a tiny bit. I don't want to burn too much money because we're going to have, looks like we're rich right now, but we will be having some, some negative financial hits, relatively soon. All right. Oh, and a stall. What are the odds? All right. This will give us a setback, a little bit more success chance. Whoa, negative 15. That's a no. And strengthens the shogunate and still gives us negatives. Why would you want that at all? We have no stall yet, so I think we're fine taking 1 here. And the bureaucracy hit will only be temporary. And we can pop up a couple more government admins to cover that cost again. We're going to need the government admins anyways when we get on appointment bureaucrats, because we'll lose the bonus that hereditary bureaucrats give you to a bureaucracy. Or actually, it's rather a cost reduction. Shall we see if we get like 3 stalls and failures in a row here? Fingers crossed not, but we'll see. It's always a shame when you get so close. I mean, it's irrelevant if you really fail right away or you fail later, but it is always a bit of a shame when you get so close and then fail. Have we moved our road maintenance? We have. All right. Down to negative 4. How's the strength of the intelligentsia? Stable. Good. Just in case we have to move them in. Success. I'd like this to pass sooner rather than later. The only reason you're in a hurry at this point, though, is that if the opening comes during the next law we're trying to pass, you tend to have to cancel it. All right, there we go. Great. So we got relatively lucky, but like I said, 50%, maybe even more of the time, that will work out just fine. And you have a backup plan. If it doesn't, that can fail as well, though. If it does fail, if it all fails, then what I tend to do is just boost my taxes to max and shoot for like serfdom as quickly as possible. Wonder why is there no chances there? Okay, they're not angry enough. And indeed, now maybe is the time to try to make them angrier. I don't like to do the whole fake law pass, like we're gonna give you something and then now I'm not gonna give it to you. That also feels a wee bit gamey, though it's not bad actually. It's probably normal politics. We offer you something and now we'll give you a more compromise that's kind of a little bit lower. So maybe I should get over that. So should we make them angrier by raising taxes? Let's take a look at that. I don't like to do it this early, and we have way too much money, so I'm not gonna do it quite yet. We're gonna start losing some money soon enough, I'm sure. Maybe it means we can push things harder. I will pop up our other government admin here, and I'm just gonna delete the other one for now, because I don't think we'll need it, at least not immediately. Let's move on to our next law. So here you have a choice. I usually go for closed borders because there's no opposition and it doesn't really matter if it succeeds or fails, and it's easier to pass now while the hymen is marginalized. However, if you are somebody who loves going the colonial route and wants to get into East Africa in particular early game, which is a very good choice for Japan, then colonial exploitation, this is your chance and you have to do it now. Because the hymen really hate this, like negative 20 hit, it's going to be hard to pass for a while. You'll get another chance later in the game, and you'll still be able to pick up some scraps, but you won't be the colonial powerhouse. All right, so that's your other option. You can also say, I just want to play it safe and try and pass, one of these to further disempower the landowners, and they'll have let's see, the samurai, so they'll have about an 8-9% chance of passing, which isn't bad. But in my opinion, you'll have chances to pass these later. This is just a great chance to try to hit closed borders, and I'm going to do that. And now we can get a ticking. I'm not raising the taxes quite yet then, despite the fact that our peasant movement seems a bit, weak. Usually you would have gotten an agitator by now, perhaps, but we haven't. Well, maybe not. We got a bit lucky on our laws passing, so no agitator for us. Oh, the Russians are belligerent and have started damaging relations. That doesn't bode well. That would be a very early opening. We did actually need that extra construction, that extra admin. Where are we sitting here in Kansai? All right. Still need 2 more. That extra admin, not construction. If we get open before we even finish our construction sectors, that would be quite impressive. Japanese-Dutch Association. Aww. Yay, who's a member of that? Yeah, the Dutch are good friends for the long term. Alright. Are we too high? Alright. Good, good. We're starting to burn a little bit of money, which is important. We don't, we don't want to waste it. But if you do start going too much in the green and you're not efficiently using all of your money, going over your cash reserve cap, it's okay. You'll be, do that for a little while. Don't worry. You'll lose some money soon. All right. Migration control. Gonna upset the interest group of the monks a bit, but like I said, they are probably the one that matters the least. Oh wow, that is really early. January of 38. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, this is meant to kind of prepare you for opening in 40, but it does just mean it means I don't get to illustrate all of the intricacies of the strategy as well. I'll still do them, but they're not as important then, because we'll be preparing for an opening that has already happened. Oh well, that's the way it is. Who knows? Maybe they'll forget about us. Go declare war on China there, Russia. At least the intelligentsia don't like Russia. That seems to happen a lot for Japan. Alright, now it's even more important I stay on my road maintenance decree now, because we're getting to the point of being forced open, and I will need all my money. It might be that we want more construction sectors. We seem to be doing especially well financially. Alright, just some token amendments. Make the Anu a little bit more radical, all 20,000 of them. And I can't privatize anything right now, which is a shame because we're making more money than I usually expect to make. I mean, yay, I guess? Why does our money keep spiking like that? I mean, it spikes every time, of course, you switch constructions, but it's still... I'm not accidentally privatizing something. I didn't, like, auto turn on privatize. No, we're not. All right. Oh, failure. Wood is, so expensive, and yet we're still not losing much money. Appointed bureaucrats is just wonderful for Japan. It's one of the few countries that actually can really make advantage of it, but it worked a miracle for us. Of course, this will go down once we get forced open. Oh, wow. Whoop, I clicked away the agitator accidentally. Looked like an agitator for the peasant movement. An agitator for the modernist movement. Wow. He's supporting the Mayan traditionalist movement, though. That's fascinating. Okay. Thus it is. Rewrite of the bill. Since they're at war, maybe they'll, wait until their war is done before they decide to come after us. A modernizer? I mean, maybe he'll change affiliations when the modernization movement spawns. Because it seems very weird to have a modernizer who supports the religious traditional movement. Oh, we are not having good luck with this. How is the shogunate doing? They still have a -4 from hereditary bureaucrats. But it balances out about perfectly. They're always going to be just about this unhappy between their negative and positive modifiers. Should we see? That's pretty bad luck. But given that this is an unimportant law, it doesn't truly matter that much. Citizens of the world. Well, that will upset the samurai, despite the extra success chance. We're not going to do it. Buddhist monk approval and strength. That's fine. We really don't need the influence right now, so let's go ahead and make them a bit stronger. At least early game, they're not going to be the main obstacle to what we're trying to accomplish. So the way it's looking now, opening should come pretty soon. And when that happens, I will probably kind of pause the episode so that I can, at the beginning of the next episode, walk you through what we'll do next. In particular, if that happens too soon, it's just important that I have a chance to kind of explain what we're going to do and what we would have maybe done. Though I will make sure they don't differ too much. Yay, prices are rationalized ever so slightly. Let me check what tech has decided to spread. No, not romanticism. Currency is spreading. That's efficient for us. Oh, Must, whoop, get the road maintenance there and cancel it there. Yay, micro. Still earning far too much money. Far too much. I hate having so much money. This is horrible. We also have too much bureaucracy. We did overbuild a little bit, but hey, room for growth in the future. And remember, we still have some negative modifiers, so you can always, remember you can always check your modifiers here. Well, it doesn't actually have them here. That's interesting. Maybe they all went away already? That's a bit quick, though. One more item. Maybe I didn't read something properly, and those events actually go away if you, I don't know, are successful. Tell me what that pop-up was. I didn't see it. Alright, let's move our road maintenance already over there. And now we're getting to the good point. Almost there. And now we don't need to worry quite so much about our huge fabric prices, because that's something I always leave until just the start of the next phase. I tack in a few fabrics. We could do that now, though. Alright, more money. Let's do that now. So one thing you'll notice that I did not build with the first initial construction loop was my cotton. That is in part because sometimes the private sector will build it. So we're going to build them, not necessarily where that's most valuable, but pretty much where we built our construction industries. There, and there. And I'm going to put one in Kansai because despite having textile mills at Game Start, they have no cotton. So that's going to be our start. Kyushu does actually have textile mills as well. I can pop it down, but I might actually cancel one of those. And we'll pop our universities down to the bottom there. But hopefully not pop them down again. Alright, yes, the private sector, what have they been building? I'm kind of curious. I really wish there was actually a construction thing where you could see them both next to each other, even if the thing is more condensed and compact. Must remember I don't have my camera on, so me doing hand gestures doesn't really help you much at all. Grassroots support, public enthusiasm. Alright, loyalists don't really help us right now, because we're not going to have many for a while. Since we are doing so well, even though this messes with the balance slightly, and so I said we are supposed to push things, I'm going to get all the construction sectors balanced out between the different regions and pop 2 more in. I kind of would like to wait until the opening to do this, so that you really see what your real finances are. But, like I said, we're supposed to push the lines a little bit. Alright. This is, I have these notifications turned on only for Japan in early game to tell me when a country becomes all of a sudden interested in me, so that I can immediately go and improve relations. How are the British? Still cautious. Aww. That's fine. Consideration. Alright, good. I'm going to hope that this can pass. That would be nice. Before the opening comes. Strategic ambitions towards us. They're going to probably seek to open us too. How happy are they? Cordial. They'll probably expel our diplomats in a second as well. Alright, more events and pop-ups. This is one reason I want the 4.5 speed. Sometimes on 5, it seems these pop up a little bit quick here. A mine in Kanto has collapsed, trapping miners within the dark shafts below. the miners. Alright, so small price to pay. So the industrialists, which I actually always like to pin here as well, despite the fact that they're marginalized, are so weak that it does no good to boost their strength. So we're not going to pick this, which was what you would probably normally pick. Trade unions also. But the Hyman will get stronger soon. So let's make them happier and stronger, because they are a backup plan for whether we go for agrarianism or interventionism. The rich and unstable political environment in the Japanese shogunate has proven attractive. Alright, we're going to get another agitator who is a land reformer. Everybody hates us. Alright, guys. Chill. Business of legislation. Industrialists will lose strength and will get legitimacy. We want that because extra legitimacy after the opening, it tends to be very good. And like I said, industrialists are a little bit weak right now, so it doesn't really matter. First, tooling is up. Great. That means you can move first your sawmills in Kanto up. And once the iron is done, we can move the tooling workshop up to iron and transition more of our logging. I'm only saying that now because I'm worried the opening is going to happen and then I'm going to totally lose track of carefully walking you through stuff. Alright, iron is finished, tooling up to iron, and then we can go and change our logging camps and Shikoku to sawmills as well. And now we can move our road maintenance decree up to Tohoku. Alright, tooling and Tohoku done. It would be lovely if we could get both of these done before the opening because it would just balance out perfectly. Hey, migration controls is done. Should we take a quick pause here and think about whether there is another law we want to squeeze through? That's a very legitimate government for one that includes the petite bourgeoisie at this point of the game. So, any more laws we'd like to do? Serfdom is now a viable option. Great. Well, you know, I'm going to wait, though, until the opening. The shogunate's going to be angry regardless, and then they'll be at least a little bit weaker. And there's no reason to start it now then, and unless it seems for some reason we get lucky. If we get to next year, then maybe I'll move. Alright. And there's no reason to make them too angry, though, too soon, when these will be a lot easier to pass later. This as well, not much chance. Subjecthood, also not a lot of chance right now. So, no laws that we want to really change right now. We can just continue as if the current situation is tolerable. Which it isn't, of course. This is a autarchic monarchy. Wow, stumbled over my words quite a bit there. Autarchic monarchy. I'll practice in front of the mirror later before the next episode. I really want to end the episode when the opening happens. So, yeah, and there we go. So that it's just a good time for it. It's not that there's any cheating involved here. I have no options. I will just be accepting their demands, and it came from the British. So the British are now our enemy, which is, you know, a shame, I guess. But you know, I like to remember this and remember who did it to me, who disturbed our peaceful island of farmers and landowners. All right, so the opening has arrived. You generally just accept this event and you do it right away. You pause your game and before they add something in and accept the event. And then you'll get the opening of Japan and it will alter all of the power structures in your country. And then you have to prepare for the transition or deal with the transition if you haven't already prepared. We have not really prepared, but we've got a very solid construction base, a very good financial situation, so that when we take the financial hit, that's not going to matter. We're going to lose all of our authority, which is a bit of a shame, but, you know, we haven't been using it anyways, or we've been using it only to pass laws. Our literacy is much lower than it would be if you'd smack down a bunch of social mobility decrees. That is a shame, but we'll be angling to get an education institution very soon. So with that, I will then, yes, call this good. This is the conclusion of Phase 1, 1836 to 1840, during which you build up a viable construction sector and pass a few critical laws. 3 of them in particular we managed to get through. making sure that your financial situation is stable and that you're ready to deal later with the honorable restoration. In the next episode, we will start setting up the baseline for what will become our core industries and eventually our companies. This baseline will also synergize very well with some of the things that we need to do to adapt to the new open economic system. So thank you for joining me. And should you have learned something useful, do feel free to like and subscribe. Should you also want to not continue watching the next episode, that is very viable, and you can use this as your baseline and then take off in any direction you want. You have a good foundation, and you can play the game as you see fit. However, I'd love to see you next time, so feel free to pop back in. Take care, and until then, ciao.